I really didn't know when I'd be able to say this sentence again, but guess what? The Mets won a game.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on X at Finkelstein Ryan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Well, we finally broke out of it. The Groundhog Day of misery, how I've opened the show all weekend. Well, guess what? The Mets won a game. It seemed for a majority of that game on Sunday like we were heading right back to that Groundhog's Day, right? That the Mets had just lost another game. Maybe you could say it wouldn't have been as disappointing because they just flatly got beat by a stud starting pitcher in Logan Webb. You're like, all right, 3-1 loss. Just par for the course for this Mets team. But guess what? They rallied. They rallied in the ninth inning, and Harrison Bader had his best game in a Mets uniform. He has been so good lately. And to me, you got to play the guy every day. Honestly, he asked for it in the papers a couple weeks ago, and we all kind of scoffed at it, said, what's Harrison Bader doing complaining about playing time? And then when you read the quotes and you got into what he was saying, it wasn't as bad as the headline would have read. But you know what? This guy is a veteran. He showed it with the glove in this game. He showed it with the bat. And Tyrone Taylor is way out of a rhythm. So for me, unless you're going to get DJ Stewart a game where you're moving Nimmo into center field, Bader should be the guy because he really showed up big in this one. And you know, he snapped the Mets out of a funk. He did. He stayed calm under pressure, and he got the big hit when they needed it. But prior to that, again, this game was looking very much like a sweep for the Giants. They were heading towards it. Logan Webb, through 7 innings, allowed just 3 hits. He walked 1. He struck out 8. The only run he allowed was due to an error by Wilmer Flores in the 2nd inning, where DJ Stewart hit a ground ball to him. Flores, didn't lead Webb to the bag on a flip to first base. It gets by Webb, gets all the way away as DJ Stewart sort of runs into the ball that was, misthrown. He ends up on second base. And funny enough, it was Harrison Bader. They got the first RBI of the game, driving in Stewart with a base hit. And the Mets had their 1 run, but that was it. That was the closest, or that was the only time they scored on Webb. And the closest they got after that was when Jeff McNeil hit a leadoff double in the 5th. But following that double, there was 3 ground outs. I believe the first one was to the pitcher and Webb, who looked back McNeil. And so he wasn't able to come across on those ground outs. He got stranded. And that was really it for the offense for most of the game. And on the pitching front, they didn't get enough from their starter, Sean Manaea. He said it in his own words after the game. He said it was as average as it gets, or an average start at best. Whatever he said, he basically described himself as mediocre. And I hate to say it, but that's really what he's been this year. You look at the ERA and it's low, and that looks really good. But 5 innings pitched in this one, 2 earned runs on 5 hits, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. Strikeout numbers are great. And again, the ERA is good, but you need to pitch deep into games. And Gary Cohen on the broadcast today mentioned something about how half the games this year, Mets starters have gone 5 innings or less. Manaea's been a big culprit in that. You need to get more length from these guys. That's what we're seeing from Luis Severino. We saw Christian Scott go 6 innings. He's been doing that as a rookie. Sean Manaea, as a veteran, has to find a way to attack the zone a little bit more, not get into so many deep counts. Otherwise, he's just not that valuable to. Yeah, as a 4 or 5 starter, that's fine. You take that. But for this team, how they're presently constructed, with Kodai Senga's return nowhere in sight, you need Sean Manaea to be a little bit more than that. And he wasn't that today. But he got picked up. And he got picked up from the most unlikely source, Adrian Hauser. Adrian Hauser legitimately was good in this game. And he's a huge reason why the Mets win, which is shocking because, for one, I've been trashing this guy every chance I get because I think he should be DFA'd. And honestly, as we'll get to a little bit later on in the show, when we look at previewing this series against the Dodgers, I still sort of hold that opinion that Hauser is a piece that still doesn't fit where this team needs to go with their 6-man rotation. But with that said, you got to give credit where credit's due. He kept the Mets in this game. And it didn't look like he was going to early, because first batter he faces nearly hits a home run off him, thanks to MVP of the game, Harrison Bader, who robs the homer. Hauser doesn't give up a run there, but he still gives up a run in the inning. Wilmer Flores then tags him for a double. Jorge Soler hits one 102.5 miles per hour for a base hit to move Flores to third. And then he finally gets a ground ball, but it's hit too softly. And so the run comes in to score. He's not able to get the double play ball. Gets another ground out to get out of that inning. But you still didn't have any confidence in Hauser in pretty much any of those innings that he pitched. But again, got to give him credit. He really did throw the ball well through those final 3 innings. He retired the side in order in each one. Thanks in part to some great defense by Brett Baty. In the 8th inning, he makes this spinning play going to his left, cutting off a ball that Lindor was trying to get to on a backhand. But for Lindor to make that play, to field the backhand, make a jump Jeter throw, probably doesn't get the runner. Baty cuts it off, does the spinorama, as Gary Cohen always coins it, gets the runner at first. That was a big play by Baty. He then caught a pop out to end the top of the 9th, where he, over the tarp, made another great catch. This is the second time we've seen him do that in the last couple of weeks. So the defense continues to flash for Brett Baty, which sort of why he's still on this roster. And again, to give a guy some credit who we've been talking about the Mets optioning, 1 for 3 in this game with a walk. Got the last 2 starts of this series, hit a home run on Saturday, then went 1 for 3 with the walk with some great defensive plays. It's still an ongoing dilemma and conversation we'll be having about what the Mets do with their 2 young third basemen. But Brett Baty had himself a pretty good series considering all the circumstances. But let's talk about the bottom of the 9th inning, because this is where the game got really good for the Mets. Incredible rally. Got to give all these guys props for hanging in there and competing. Brandon Nimmo starts things off. A fortunate hit on a ground ball that was deflected off the pitcher, and Nimmo is able to beat it out. JD Martinez, first pitch hitting, goes the other way, gives the Mets another base runner. So you have your 2 tying runs aboard. Starling Marte comes in to pinch run for Martinez, and you're right there at that point. DJ Stewart lined out, but then after Jeff McNeil got hit by a pitch to load the bases, Harrison Bader comes up. He gets a slider that's up out of the zone, but he covers it, rips a double that scores 2 and ties the game. And man, that was as good of a feeling as I've had as a Mets fan in a long time, seeing him get that hit to tie the game. I mean, it's unbelievable the roller coaster of emotions you have as a Mets fan, because even in that moment, even though the Mets have something cooking, you're just waiting for the double play ball, the thing to end the game that you just can't believe, the strikeout to the pop-up, whatever it's going to be. You're expecting the Mets to lose because they keep finding ways to lose. So even though you have a chance, bases loaded, 1 out, 2-run game, all you need is a base hit that might score 2, or in this case, it ended up being a double, but you're just expecting it to be some nightmare scenario, and the Groundhog Day of misery continues to roll for the Mets. But guess what? He comes through with that hit, and that takes the pressure off everybody, and at that point, you feel the momentum squarely on the Mets side. Omar Narvaez comes up after Brett Baty was intentionally walked, and Narvaez, with a drawn-in infield, gets the hit, and you got to give Gary Cohen a great shout out, or the production team a shout out for just a critical and crucial broadcaster jinx, or reverse jinx in this case. You love it. It's just amazing to point out that Omar Narvaez has not gotten a hit at home all season. I don't know how long they were sitting on that one, but they waited for the right time to call it out, which, by the way, is pathetic. But that's a story for another day. The fact that he hasn't got a hit at home all year. It's one of those things where, the result makes you go, oh, that's awesome. He finally did it. But then you step back and think, man, how many at-bats was it that it took for him to get that knock? But hey, he walks it off. The Mets are winners for a day, and it feels good. It feels good to see the Mets, I can't even say get back on track, but get one. The question is, do they have any hope at getting things on track? If you saw the title of the show today, that's what we're going to talk about next. Will the Mets see 500 again this year? I'm going to go through that thought exercise in just a minute. First, though, a word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Game time. You just saw it, a walk-off victory on Sunday. There's more games left in this homestand. And if you want to see any of the action, make sure you head over to Game Time, the place to go for last-minute tickets at a time like this where season ticket holders and others are probably looking to maybe sell off some of their tickets because they're not as thrilled about going to catch the Mets against the Dodgers in a midweek game. You can get in the ballpark real cheap, and the best part is the whole process is so easy. When I went to buy my tickets to Mets Marlins a couple weeks ago, I had my tickets in 45 seconds, if that. I spotted out all the different seats available in the stadium. I picked one that was a great value deal. I saw my seat before I paid, and I was like, oh yeah, that's a view that I want. I saw the fees up front, so there was no hidden fees I had to worry about. Took all the guesswork out of buying tickets and had them again in less than a minute. If you want to go to a Mets game, or if you want to just go to a concert or anything else, head over to Game Time. It's the place to go for last-minute tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. If you're an everyday listener to the show, make sure you become a Locked On Mets insider. This is our texting service where you get updates from me anytime something breaks in the Mets. You can ask me questions anytime. We can go back and forth over text. You also get the lineup graphic sent to your phone each day, so you know who the starting nine is going to be without having to go on social media. And it's also the place to go for our Locked On Mets signed photo giveaways. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find a link in the episode description or go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. Will the Mets be over 500 or even at 500 at any point again this season? Despite winning the game on Sunday, they're still 8 games under. They're 22-30. So what I wanted to do is look back at last year, see when they were last over 500 or at 500, and what was that sort of journey throughout the season, because I think it'll give us an understanding of the uphill battle the Mets are going to face here. So last year, the Mets started 14-7. Then they lost 12 out of 15 games, and on May 9th, they were sitting at 17-19. Now, they went throughout the rest of the month of May, and they went 12-8, so they closed out May strong. So, and they also won the first game in June, I should also mention. That put them at 30-27. Now, we all know that the record for June last year was 6-19. Crazy that they won the first game. So, from that point on, they went 5-19 in June. They lost 8 games in a row to start the month after that first victory, and they fell to 30-34. By the end of the month, they were 10 games under 500, and they never saw 500 again. Even though they opened up July with a 6-game winning streak, but they couldn't sustain that. They finished that month 14-9, and they sold off the team. The rest is obviously history, but it's really instructive to look back to that team and then think about this team and what the plan will be at the trade deadline. Yes, even after the walk-off victory, I am curious talking about it because that's sort of the big moment of this season that everything is leading up to right now. What will the Mets do? Who will get sold? All of that stuff is up for debate. And I'm sure there's a lot of Mets fans that, despite just one victory, are still on that bandwagon of this season is completely washed. There's no chance. Put a fork in the Mets. They're done. And I understand that sentiment. But my question would be, what would it take for them to get back to 500? So let's look at the rest of this stretch before the London series. They got the Dodgers and Diamondbacks at home. That's 7 games. Then they go to Washington for a 3-game set. If the Mets were to win all 3 series, and the series against the Diamondbacks is a 4-game set, that would be winning 7 of their next 10, 8 out of 11, including this one that they just won today. So that would move them to 29-33 on the season. That's the crazy part. Even if they win 3 series in a row, they're still 4 games under. And then they got to play the Phillies in London, and who knows how that's going to go. The Mets did go 15-11 in April this year. Now, that included that great 12-5 run they had. 12-3 run over a 15-game span. And it included them sliding back down a little bit, starting from that series against the Giants in San Francisco. You look at what they did in April. They had a .577 winning percentage. That was playing at a 93 win pace. Can they do that again throughout the rest of this month and all the way through June? They have 19 games left in June, including the London series, when they get to that point of the schedule. So 10 games until the London series, 19 games, including it, through the end of June. So let's just say they do what I said. They win those 3 series leading into the London series. And let's say they split that one, and ultimately over the final 19 games in June, they play at a 577 clip, which would basically be winning 11 of those 19 games. So they got 11-8, which isn't crazy, but that would be winning more series than not, and being a good baseball team for a stretch. If they do all of that, do you think they would be at 500? Even with a 7-3 stretch to close off this part of the schedule before London, in an 11-8 stretch from that point on, they still would be under 500 at 40-41 by the end of June. And I'll tell you what, if you could put a contract in front of David Stearns and Steve Cohen and anybody else involved with the Mets and said, all right, you sign this paper and your team will be 40-41 by the end of June, everyone's signing on that dotted line, because that would mean going 18-11 to close out from this point through the end of June. It's asking a lot, but that's what it would take to even get to one game under 500. And then they'd have to be good in July. And obviously, you win the first game there, yes, the Mets would see 500 again. But the fact that they're 8 games under right now, it puts them in a big, big hole, a worse hole than even they were at the start of the season, where they were 0-5, but still had 157 games left to play. So as much as we want to celebrate every victory we get as Mets fans, and I'm not telling you not be happy going into work today, I will say that it is still a very big uphill battle that the Mets are facing here that most likely is going to result in a sell-off at the deadline. That's not the worst thing in the world. We're going to explore that over the time until we get there about all the reasons why that's good for the Mets. And also the Mets could still be an exciting team after that point. There's a world where the Mets hang close enough into the race, and then they're this younger team after the deadline that still finds a way to be a lot more exciting than the team we watched last year that was starting Jonathan Arauz, okay? The Mets can be a lot more fun with Luis Angel Acuna and the guys that they have on this roster sticking around, the guys who do, the core players, I mean, that will still be there, the young pitching. Like, there's a world where that's not a bad scenario. But to get back to the crux of this discussion, getting back to 500, if the Mets are going to do that, they got to reel off a winning streak. That's how it happens, because that's what we saw where they had that great stretch. Like, the Mets need to sweep the Dodgers and then win the first 3 games of their series against the Diamondbacks, and all of a sudden you win 7 in a row. And then now you're in the hunt, right? Now you're getting closer and closer to it. It's going to take a great stretch of baseball over the next 6 weeks for the Mets to be on the peripheral of the conversation when you get into July. And then they have to sustain it in July and not have another backslide after they do some winning. The Padres right now are holding on to the 3rd wildcard spot at 28-28. The Cubs are a half a game up in the 2nd wildcard spot at 27-26. So nothing has gotten away from the Mets. They're within 5 games of the 2nd wildcard spot right now. With that said, and they're also, I should say, 4 games out of the 3rd wildcard spot. Yes, they can still gain ground and get into this mix, and that's partly due to the parity in the National League, and there's just not a lot of good teams. But if you were to tell me right now, I have to bet $100, will the Mets see 500 again this season? I'm a Mets fan. I'm an optimist. I would bet that. But now someone says, no. It's not just 100. You got $1,000 you got to put on the line here. Do you really believe the New York Mets will see 500 at any point again this season? And I think if there's any Mets fan, even the most optimistic ones, that had to search deep down in your soul and say, do you believe in this Mets team to see 500 again at any point in the calendar year of 2024? It's May 27th with so much left to play. I don't know if there's anyone, Steve Cohen included, that actually believes enough in this team to think that can happen. And that's the state of Mets baseball right now. But they won a game. Let's see them win 5 in a row, and then we can tweak our takes and adjust to what is happening in front of us. I'm thrilled the Mets won a game. And it's awesome to see those guys fight. And Harrison Bader had himself a day. And you got to give him all the credit in the world for that. Awesome to see. They got to sustain it, and they got to start winning series, because this was a series this weekend where they should have swept it. They should have won all 3 games And imagine how different the conversation is on a Monday if they didn't blow 2 games and they actually swept the series. And instead of sitting at 22-30, they're 25-27. Or let me do the math differently there. They would be 24-28. 4 games under is a lot different than 8 games under, and it's crazy how much things can swing, but that's what happens when you blow baseball games. If this bullpen's better, if this lineup can click, and the 6-man rotation they're about to roll out can hold up until Kodai Senga comes back, there still could be something to watch throughout this Mets season, and I'm holding out hope for it. It's just not something I'd bet on. But we're going to talk Mets-Dodgers in just a minute. First, though, a word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Supply House. Get supplies from the site that's made for skilled trades, supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining Supply House's free Trade Master program, where every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at supplyhouse.com/T-M and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. In the NBA playoffs, we have 2 teams that have jumped out to 3-0 series leads in the conference finals as an NBA finals matchup appears inevitable. If you want to find out all the latest on the NBA playoff news, the NHL playoffs, and of course, Major League Baseball, check out Locked On Sports Today, streaming 24/7 on YouTube. Mets-Dodgers for a 3-game set. Can the Mets beat the Dodgers in 2 series this season? That would be something. I'll tell you what, the Dodgers are not playing great baseball, and I don't know if that makes me think more or less of them going into this series. Part of me feels like, all right, they're on a 5-game losing streak. That's due to get snapped. Like, that's not going to hold up, is it? I think the hope is you win game 1, they snap it with Tyler Glasnow on the mound in game 2, and then you steal a series game 3. That's the roadmap, I think, for the Mets, but they haven't been winning a lot of game 1s all season, so it'll be an interesting series for sure. You look at what's gone wrong for the Dodgers during this stretch. They've been held to 1 run or fewer 3 times in those 5 games, and they've allowed 6 or more 3 times as well. So not pitching well, not hitting well could be a recipe for the Mets to sustain this winning a little bit, but you're also looking at a team that's 33-22 this season and has the greatest collection of talent in the sport when you look at the top of that lineup, which is just unbelievable. Betts, Ohtani, Freeman, although Freddie Freeman not swinging it well right now, which is the exact same thing we saw the last time the Mets faced the Dodgers, and sure enough, he started to swing it against a team that he has just owned throughout his career. So I can't hold that much hope here. The one guy that's missing from the starting lineup that you are grown accustomed to seeing when the Dodgers come into town is Max Muncy. He's on the IL, but the rest of the regulars are there for this series. Now, the Mets are going to roll out the second half of their new 6-man rotation, because what we're learning here with the 6-man rotation is you pretty much have one group that starts one series and another group of 3 that starts the second one. And there's clearly an A group and a B group. And the A group is the one we just saw, which should have won all 3 games against the Giants. Christian Scott, Luis Severino, and Sean Manaea. The B group is 2 guys that we've been watching for years now with some success, but a lot more downtimes and a ton of inconsistency. And that's Tyler McGill and David Peterson, who will bookend this series. And the guy in the middle, Jose Quintana, who has not had a good start to his season. He's looking a lot like Carlos Carrasco last year, and that is concerning. So you look at how it shapes up. It'll be Gavin Stone versus McGill in game 1. Gavin Stone did pitch against the Mets in that last series in April. He did not throw the ball well. Didn't make it out of the 4th inning. He walked 5. You can make an argument that was his worst start of the year when you're looking at it from a control perspective to walk that many batters. Since then, though, he has lowered his ERA from 6 to 3.60. He had 4 quality starts in a row after his start against the Mets. And his last time out, he still went 6 innings, but gave up 4 runs to the Diamondbacks. So he is pitching much better than the last time we saw him. That'll be an interesting matchup to see if the Mets can get the better of him again. And McGill has looked pretty good coming off the IL, so we'll see what he looks like in this start. Game 2, the Mets are going to lose. I say that flatly because hopefully it'll, surprise us and we'll get a different result. But I would be so stunned if the Mets found a way to beat Tyler Glasnow when they have Jose Quintana pitching on the other side. Glasnow pitched 8 scoreless against the Mets last time that they met up in April. 10 strikeouts in that performance. He was dialed. Quintana did not face the Dodgers in that series. Final game, if the Mets can make it a rubber match, they got a good shot. James Paxton versus David Peterson. Paxton, if you look at the underlying numbers, the expected ERA, the expected FIP, everything is telling you this guy should blow up and have a much higher ERA, and yet it sits at 3.49 on the season. He's 5-0 when it comes to his record. So he is living right. Maybe that ends against the Mets. David Peterson will be making his first start of the season coming off that hip surgery he had in the offseason, which put him on the 60-day IL. I don't think I've ever seen anyone on the 60-day IL get as many quality rehab starts as David Peterson did as far as getting ramped up and being ready to go. This guy has been healthy for some time. He's been throwing the ball well in all of these different rehab appearances. So I'm excited to see what he does. It's a tough lineup. Here you go, kid. Get back out there against, why did I call David Peterson kid? Is David Peterson older than me? Let's see if I actually have the seniority to call David Peterson kid. I don't think I do. He's 28, born in 95, just like me. How about that? Let's see if he's an early birthday. He can call me kid by 11 days. I didn't know we were 11 days apart, me and David Peterson. Regardless, it's still rough for Peterson. You haven't pitched all year, and here's your first inning getting back on a big league mound. Go up against Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, and Freddie Freeman. Have fun. We'll see. Everyone who's been listening to this show for a while knows I am a huge David Peterson fan. He made me look very dumb last year when I said he had the ceiling of a 3-starter and he could reach that ceiling in 2023, and he turned in arguably the worst year of his career. But we learned later that there was some hip stuff that was plaguing him, and he never quite felt right. Not that that excuses everything, and I'm sure he wouldn't take that as an excuse, but still, now that he's physically okay, feeling much better, I am really excited to see what he can do and see what this 6-man rotation can do, because I think you look at it 1 through 6, and I'd say Quintana is probably the weak spot, but we've seen Quintana battle in starts, and McGill and Peterson are these 2 guys we've been watching for a while that might have finally figured it out. This is the year that I think is sort of make or break for them, whether they're going to always be perpetually in that swingman depth 7th starter on your depth chart going into spring training and injuries will force them into action, or if either of them can really establish themselves as a guy that you're penning into the 2025 rotation. So when you're thinking about it from a long-term view, I like that these guys are getting opportunities, and I hope at some point Jose Budo can get some chances as well, because he's another guy that's in that same bucket. So that'll be a good part of this series to see those guys pitch. The question I have, though, is how do the Mets manage a 6-man rotation with Adrian Houser in the bullpen? We have discussed this before, but now we're going to see it actually play out, because after that outing, after getting his first win, the Mets are not going to DFA Adrian Houser this week. It's just not going to happen. So when can we see him again? He threw 44 pitches in this outing today. 31 of them were strikes. That's what you want to see from him. 4 days rest is what he had after his last appearance, a spot start. So he was fully rested as if he was starting a game. He threw 72 pitches in the spot start. This is 44 pitches, but I look back at all of his relief appearances so far since moving to the bullpen, and then you, of course, include the spot start in that. He has not pitched yet on anything less than those 4 days rest. So if that's the case, if you have a guy in your bullpen that essentially needs starter rest, you basically need to get 4 innings out of him for him to be effective for your bullpen. When you only get 2 innings out of him, which is what we saw in his first 2 relief appearances, well, that's not really going to do much for you. Actually, that might have been his second and third relief appearance. I'm thinking in my head, I think he might have had a 1-inning appearance, and then I'll pull it up just to confirm that I'm right on this. But regardless, it puts you in a tough spot, and that's what I keep on coming back to when it comes to the DFA conversation with this guy. And it was, I actually had it right the first time. So he made a start on May 2nd, 2 appearances out of the bullpen, 2 innings pitched each time. Then he had another spot start, and then this one 4 innings pitch. Like what we saw today, if Adrian Hauser actually gave you that every 5 days, 4 innings out of the pen, 1 run, of course you'd sign up for it. But I think there has to be a happy middle there where he can give you 2 innings or 2 to 4 innings, depending on pitch count, every 4 days instead of every 5 days. Could we see Adrian Hauser in the first game of that series against the Diamondbacks? I don't think you'll see him in this series, but can he pitch a game out of the pen then? I think that's going to really decide how effective this can be. Otherwise, you're going to go into a series like this one where you're a man down in the bullpen when you have a 6-man rotation. You'll be 2-man down. Luckily for the Mets, they don't have to activate David Peterson until Wednesday, so they can have an extra arm in the pen for the first 2 days. And then for the final game of the series, they'll have to remove an arm, but that's when they might desperately need one because you have no idea how much length you're going to get out of David Peterson. So you're pretty much operating with a 6-man bullpen when Peterson makes his start on Wednesday, and who knows how much you needed the other guys in that pen after the first 2 games of this series. So that's really this ongoing discussion that is going to be had when it comes to how the Mets manage things. One way to adjust it is you cycle the 6th starter. So David Peterson makes this spot start, and then you option him, and you add a bullpen arm, and then when the next turn comes up, hopefully Jose Budo has had enough time down that you can call him back up to make another spot start, and then you cycle him, Lucchesi, and Peterson, and that's how you manage it. There are ways the Mets can get around this, but I really do think it's a problem. What the bullpen's ultimately going to be, you'll have Edwin Diaz, Adam Ottavino, Reed Garrett, Jorge Lopez, and Jake Diekman and Adrian Hauser, I think, are all pretty much locks. And the question on Wednesday is going to be, does Sean Reed-Foley or Josh Walker go down? Walker has the optionality, so it's probably him. But you still have Drew Smith's looming return that throws some things into question because he doesn't have any options. Sean Reed-Foley doesn't have any options. And if you have a 6-man rotation and Hauser in the bullpen, you can't carry them both. So that's something we will continue to monitor. We also got to monitor Brett Baty and Mark Vientos' playing time. How do they split up this series? Baty got 2 starts this weekend. I know a lot of Mets fans didn't love that because Mark Vientos has looked like the hottest bat in this lineup through stretches. Now, Brett Baty played well. Great defense, hit a home run on Saturday. So he deserves some time, I guess, but you just get into this weird thing where you always have to, what's the expression? Rob Peter to pay Paul. I think I said that right. Does Vientos start game 1? Because that should be a start for him because he's just been benched for the last 2 games. But I think Gavin Stone is probably the best matchup that Brett Baty probably has in this series. I don't think he fares pretty well going up against Tyler Glass now, whereas I've seen Mark Vientos handle velocity this year. Maybe he's a better fit in that game, and that could be how they line it up. It could be Baty makes a 3rd start in a row, and then you see Vientos against Tyler Glass. Now, he'll definitely be in the lineup against James Paxton in the final game of this series, the left-hander, but that's another thing we got to watch for and see how long the Mets want to keep this experiment rolling. It does make them a better team, I feel like, having both of these guys in the short term, but developmentally, something's got to give. And I think this problem will ultimately solve itself because I really believe that JD Martinez's stint in the Mets uniform is going to look a lot like Justin Verlander's, where he has a cameo. It happened, but at some point, when we get to the deadline, I think he'll eventually get moved, and that'll clear up the playing time that was always supposed to be there for Vientos. But until then, it's a problem the Mets have to juggle. Anyway, that's going to be all for today's edition of Locked On Mets. At some point this week, we're going to talk about the New York Mets were a team that has been built to sell. There's other things along those lines that I'll be going over. So if you don't want to miss out on any of your Locked On Mets coverage and you're listening on the audio side, do me a favor, follow, rate, review wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, trying to make a push to 9,000 subs. I appreciate all of you who continue to subscribe. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find the link in the episode description to go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. If you want to follow me on X, you can do so at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day, or your first watch. And for your second watch, head over to Locked On Sports Today, which is streaming 24/7 on YouTube to stay up to date with everything going on in the world of sports. Locked On Sports Today is streaming on YouTube as well as on the Amazon Fire TV channels.